Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is indeed pathetic that still no one has been held accountable for the disastrous decisions that were made at the State Department before, during, and after this terrorist attack. State continues to merely shuffle the deck chairs and employ officials who were part of the management deficiencies and systematic failures that were tragically made. Earlier this year, 2 senior officials resigned over the IRS scandal, yet no one has resigned, no one has been fired at State for the misguided decisions related to the September 11th, 2012 terrorist attacks. This is unacceptable and it is appalling. The administration is asking us to trust it when it says that it's doing everything it can to hold our people accountable for their pathetic roles in this tragedy and will bring those terrorists responsible to justice. Really? Who believes this? This is the same administration who deliberately politicized the talking points, set out a false narrative, denying that this was a terrorist attack and attributing blame to a video maker. Secretary Panetta has said that there was little communication with the White House and President Obama during the night of the attack. In this time of great need, was the president missing in action? The White House has failed to answer the question of where the president was, what he was doing during the attack, and why he failed to call for military backup. Greg Hicks, the former deputy chief of missions in Libya, testified that the administration gave a stand-down order to prevent a rescue team from going into Benghazi to help. Who gave that stand-down order? Can you describe the coordination between the White House, Secretary Clinton, and Secretary Panetta to give our personnel immediate support and assistance? Did anyone even lift a finger? Libya was a high-threat post, and this should have made continued security requests of our personnel an urgent priority within the department, and those requests should have been granted immediately. It was not a question of funding or capabilities. Their requests were not granted because people failed to do their job. What assurances can you give us that another high-threat post, as we speak, is not currently urgently asking for additional security, additional support, and that they are being ignored as well? What protocols are now in place to prevent this from happening again? The ARB recommended that State establish a panel of outside independent experts with experience in high-risk, high-threat areas to identify best practices and evaluate U.S. security platforms. What are those recommendations? In January, I asked Secretary Clinton for an itemized funding layout and justification of how the department was going to enforce and implement, as she said, all of the 64 recommendations from the ARB. I've not received that detailed report. This summer, as we know, the department closed over 20 embassies and consulates in the Middle East and North Africa. We should condition aid to host nations based on their full cooperation with the U.S. on implementing a plan that will protect our Foreign Service officers and ambassadors overseas. So I ask you, sir, what about the stand-down order? What was the coordination between the White House and Secretaries Clinton and Panetta? And what about the implementation of the recommendations, all 64?
Thank you very much. I hesitate to speak for the President of the United States, but what I have been briefed on is that this is what the White House has outlined. As soon as the President learned of the attack on our temporary mission facility in Benghazi, he immediately acted to ensure that our military and national security staff could secure and assist our embassies around the globe and reinforce our—
Can you answer who gave the stand-down order? Do you have any information?
There was no stand-down.
What about the coordination?
If I could, ma'am, there was no stand-down order. I'd be glad to—
Thank you. What about the coordination between the Department of State, the White House, and Secretary Panetta?
There was coordination all night. The call came in at about 3:45 p.m. in the afternoon, Washington time, and the State
who decided that there was no reason to help, or they had no capabilities, or they had no resources to help?
The U.S. military was put on alert. A fast Marine platoon from one location.
How long did this firefight take place, this terrorist attack? How many hours?
The attack on the temporary mission facility
Was it 8 hours?
No, the attack on the temporary mission facility was about an hour, and then there was about a 6-hour lag, and then there was about a 15-minute second attack.
So 7
on the
hours
annex.
plus. And so during
That's
that
correct.
time,
The nearest U.S. military forces were in Djibouti.
and in
on the
7
other-
hours,
The distance from Djibouti to
Really?
Benghazi is about the distance from Washington to Dallas, Texas.
it would have been impossible, you think?
There were no, yes, there were no
in
U.S.
7+ hours.
There were
There
no
was
U.S.
nothing that we could do. So
There-
that's the message that we're sending to our embassies. When you're in trouble,
No.
7+ hours, we're in the 1930s, we can't get to you.
No, Congresswoman. We have been working with the Department of Defense, but there are only so many Department of Defense military installations around the world, and the distances from those installations, the reason why that is relevant and important goes to our request and your help in increasing the funding to allow.
Thank you very much. As was pointed out, and I know I'm over, it was just not a problem of funding. And the ARB states it, and every witness has said it. So it was not a problem of lack